Welcome to Music and Message, a weekly series that features musical performances and spoken reflection from a diversity of religious and spiritual perspectives. My name is Brian Conkle. I serve as Dean of Hendricks Chapel and Professor of Practice in the Department of Religion. And I ask that we begin by acknowledging with respect the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the indigenous peoples on whose ancestral lands Syracuse University now stands. In the midst of all that is taking place in our campus, across our country, and throughout the world, it is appropriate to share once again that our theme for Music and Message this semester is beauty, brokenness. In doing so, we recognize how this particular Sunday afternoon is important. For once again, we have witnessed the frayed fabric of our common life in the United States of America. And once again, we are compelled to recognize that only together can we meet the enormous challenges of our time. While the votes have been cast and the vast majority counted, this is indeed a time to draw upon what President Abraham Lincoln described as the better angels of our nature, and take to heart the words he spoke in his second inaugural address. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds. And so today, once again, as we have done each Sunday in the midst of these unprecedented, unexpected, unpredictable, and uncertain times, together we explore the ways in which beauty can emerge from brokenness, and also how brokenness can be found within that which is often deemed to be beautiful. By exploring such paradox and tension, we explore the role of joy, grief, celebration, and sorrow within the human experience. Today, we give thanks for those participating in our program today. Sophia Rossi, Gary King, Emery Schramm, Augustin Sobang, Aaron Mannion, Benji Whitman, and Crystal Lee. And as always, we give thanks for Alex Snow and the staff of Hendricks Chapel, who are working to bring this program to thousands of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and friends. And of course, we are grateful to Dr. Annie Laver and Dr. Pepe Calvar from the Setner School of Music in the College of Visual and Performing Arts here at Syracuse University for their partnership and leadership. To all gathered with us online today and here in person, thank you for being with us. May you all be invited into the fullness of life.
remnants keep me dreaming, and fast my bed rose on to the instance when the river meets the floor, and on to the fear and the light behind, and all that it takes to walk on the rocks after it pours. It doesn't seem to matter anymore. She walks a tightrope over my favorite creek, and soon I fall, flowing on to the edge that I had never seen before, and on to the dream of soaring off, and all that it takes to walk on the rocks after it pours. It doesn't seem to matter anymore. You see yourself, oh, you say to go on, 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 on,
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone here, everyone at home. My name is Benji Whitman, and I'm honored to be here today to be the reflection speaker for Music and Message. Specifically, as a former graduate of Syracuse University and a former member of the Hendricks Chapel choir, it feels so good to be back in these walls to work together and be here with your company. So, this week, this semester, beauty and brokenness. Such a wide topic, and trying to come up with something I wanted to reflect on was specifically difficult this week, given the election, the continuing pandemic, the equity or lack thereof in our nation. It's been a scattered week and a scattered semester, and I'd say a scattered year. But I thought I'd talk to you today about happiness through relativity. So happiness through a perspective, sort of methodical approach to being happier. Because it's so obvious there's so much in our world that's backwards, I feel it's important that we all take stock of what we all have and put it into our perspectives for ourselves. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Going forward, I want to start off by saying I perceive happiness as balance. And I think I've always been enamored by the idea of balance, which is kind of ironic because I think I'm probably the clumsiest person I know, being a frequent visitor to the first aid kit that I keep in my car. But that's besides the point. Before I give you my TED Talk about finding balance and being happier and pretending that I have discovered the purpose of life, which I haven't, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I got my undergraduate degree here from Syracuse University in music from the College of Visual and Performing Arts. I'm currently working as the program assistant for outdoor education while I finish my master's in business administration this year. I've always been enamored and intrigued by leadership. I started pursuing leadership at a young age. I participated in activities and became a mentor for various leadership development programs and organizations, notably the Scouting Program, the National Youth Leadership Training Program, etc. Still today, I've been engaged with many of these organizations, and I continue to support as many leadership development programs as I can. Even though I've progressed through different academic and professional activities, I continue to pursue this active interest in leadership development. More recently, this past summer, I co-wrote a syllabus and taught a summer course here at Syracuse University called Team and Leadership Academy, which we deem TLA for short. Through my own personal interest, research, and experience, I focused my sessions heavily on personal leadership. I tend to think of personal leadership as an art of balance, per se, through perspective, hence my infatuation with balance being matured and manifested into studying and sharing my views on personal leadership. Over the last few years, I've continued to read and research about all the diverse leadership topics and ideals pertaining specifically to personal development. I've analyzed some popular concepts, including the yin and yang, Taoism, silver lining mentality, mental contrasting, emotional intelligence, the white bear principle, developing visions, etc., and how they affect people's life and how it affects their ability to lead. And by lead, I mean lead themselves as well as others. Unsurprisingly, I have found that there is a direct correlation between happiness and these personal leadership theories. AKA, being happy is directly affected by our own internal perspective, regulation, and balance. While obviously we are affected by our environment, our happiness, our wholeness, as a state of being, is more influenced by ourselves. Balancing our thoughts, balancing our actions, our expectations, and our desires, and finding some relative sense about it and finding how we fit in gives us the ability to be more fulfilled, more satisfied, and happier, to separate what we can control. While I don't have time to dive into a total analysis of all the topics I've studied, I thought today I would touch on a few actionable ideas and suggest some ways in a methodical approach of how we may be able to be a little bit happier, gain more perspective, and be more whole. Going back to the idea of balance, equilibrium, homeostasis, these are all relative concepts. As in, there's at a minimal two sides to these equations. The key is to understand the relative balance point. Traversing this difference is where we can make a notable difference in our daily lives. This dualism has been described by many, but in ancient Eastern philosophy, it's described as yin and yang. This concept maintains how seemingly opposing or contrary forces are actually complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world. Both sides give rise to the other as they interrelate to the other. This is observed in all forms of change and difference, especially through natural cycles like the seasons, the tide, the moon phases, day and night, etc. The idea of complementary and abstract forces is an important assumption for our discussion today, for us to find homeostasis within ourselves. Think beauty and brokenness. In modern Western philosophy, there's a common idiom known as the silver lining. In 1634, John Milton writes this phrase in his grand poem, Comus, which originated the proverb, "Every cloud has its silver lining." By silver lining, he refers to the visible gleam, silver-like edge of a cloud when light is cast directly behind it. The metaphor drawn here is that there is light on the other side of the dark cloud, and this being a clear allusion and reference to hope. So restated, every difficulty or setback also contains some sort of potential for beneficial and other outcomes. I think over time, silver lining has become almost synonymous with exclusively positivity, seemingly forgetting to emphasize the importance of the perspective of the negative aspect that created the silver lining, this sliver of hope, this reckoning of the possibility for positive things to come. This term has shed its darker half over the last few centuries, arguably leaving the most important part behind. There can't be a bright side without the inevitable dark side. Our world effectively cannot be void of negative because without negative, there's no positive. We as humans have this innate ability to differentiate the positive and the negative separately, in a sense, disconnecting the idea of yin and yang as distinct. We are able to favor either one or the other. Expectations founded through the yang alone, optimism, buoyancy, positivity, light, are met with disappointment. But respectively, expectations founded through yin alone, the negativity, jadedness, and darkness, are met with muted ambitions. The only difference where these forces meet is where we have the ability to understand and apply hope and find our own true silver lining in the balance between. Overpositivity, also known as toxic positivity, or dwelling strictly on the negative are both equally ineffective. I know staying positive seems like the elite mantra to live and thrive by. I know disregarding the negative seems like the easiest and most efficient way to move on. But in reality, I'd argue these stances only hinder our ability to be happier because they inherently put us out of balance, putting us at a place where we cannot find a silver lining and we lose perspective. Not everything is rainbows and sunshine. Life is messy. It's okay for things to be bad. It's okay to be unhappy. It's okay to say you are unhappy, and it's okay for things not to be perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, and you can't expect yourself to be any more perfect. But by working to accept the worst things, we are more able to appreciate the best things. And by doing so, you can become closer to finding balance, and you'll become happier. Granted, I understand this is a lot easier said than done. One last anecdote that I think may be helpful in our efforts to find balance, to find happiness, and be more whole. I've taken from an emotional intelligence research that I've done this past year that I found incredibly helpful. I was told emotions are merely data points, not facts. Emotions are merely data points and not facts. So I personally found this statement extremely helpful as I continue to strive to find this inner balance, to find this wholeness, to be happier. It's important to realize, to be happier, that emotions are not right or wrong. Instead, remember, they just are. In that way, we let our emotions inform us, but not dictate us. Taking a step back to understand why you feel a certain way is the first step in changing the response in which you want it to be, being more satisfied and more aligned with ourselves. This, in the long run, is the internal balance that we can learn to control. Your ability to live through the pain as much as the joy. Your ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable for your own sake. And your ability to understand and respond to whatever life throws at you, both good and bad, with intent, no matter our circumstances. To summarize a lot of what I've just said, I've talked about balance and described by yin and yang, the two natural and opposing forces depicted in Eastern culture that rely on the other to exist. I talked about silver linings being at the point of intersection of these forces where we can find hope, assuming we can acknowledge both the dark and the light. And lastly, I stated that emotions are merely data points and not facts as a frame of reference to understand and start your journey to becoming more in control and acting from a sense of peace. But what now? Moving forward, I challenge you to take a few moments each day to to think about your perspective, personally, communally, and situationally. Contemplate the different forces you may encounter. Think about how they will make you feel. Deliberate and decide how you would like to respond. Recognize and value the possibility of the good things. Understand and appreciate the potential for the bad things. And remember the inevitable goodness that is to follow. That's what makes the good things so much more impactful, is the ability for the bad things to be there. In this way, I hope you to find a fuller sense of peace, balance within, and to be happier, to find a sense of wholeness. I'd like to close with a poem written earlier this year called Forever Whole, that I think encapsulates a lot of the methodical advice that I have offered today, hopefully puts it in a perspective that you can take home with you afterwards. So, Forever Whole. It snowed again, yet another deterring force. The lock of flowers from last spring have browned. Dry and brittle in the deceiving, frigid air, I'm sure they would have wanted to live on forever, but the natural world would not allow that to be so. 'Tis the tale of life, 'tis the tale of death. To see them in their beauty, a blessing. To let them drift into the wind, just. Eager for the dawn of warmth again, bringing new beauty to thy eyes. Then I can once again be whole. Just want to say thanks for allowing me to speak with you today and reflect here this warm winter day. At Music and Message for Beauty and Brokenness. I hope you're able to take something away from that. I'd like to conclude my portion with a musical piece called Winter. Give me just a moment to grab my instrument.
When winter falls, next year I'll be holding on to anything nailed down. As for being patient with fate and all it's getting old, and my mind is slowly fading, I'm calling on my oldest friends, saying sorry for the mess we're in. I'm waiting for the sun to come and melt this snow, wash away the pain and give me back control. An angel got his wings and we'll hold our heads up knowing that he's fine. We'd all be lucky to have a love like that in a lifetime. Should we still set his place? Should we still save his chair? Should we still buy him gifts? And if we don't, did we not care? It makes you think about the things you've done, things you said, and life goes on, and it's grounding. grounding. I've been feeling 3 feet tall this month, hardly indestructible, but the snow melts and the rhythm still goes on. An angel got his wings and we'll hold our heads up knowing that he's fine. We'd all be lucky to have a love like that in a lifetime. Friends stay side by side in life and death. You always stole my heart. You always meant so much to me. It's hard to believe this. These nights in vans, these nights in bars don't mean a thing with empty hearts, with empty hearts. Angel got his wings and we'll hold our heads up knowing that he's fine. We'd all be lucky to have a love like that in a lifetime. Friends stay side by side in life and death. You always stole my heart. You'd always meant so much to me. It's hard to believe this. Thank you.
In light of our theme of beauty, brokenness, it seems appropriate to offer this final blessing from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace.